Well, welcome everybody. This is the second session. I don't know if you were able to access the first recording, but it is available on the website and it's available through the Scots Canada update. We provided links to it as well. And the same thing will happen with this. We'll provide a link to the Zoom smart recording, which gives you a transcript down the side and as well a summary at the bottom, which seems to be doing pretty good. So just in case we need to, why don't we just go through a quick introductions? I'm assuming everybody knows who everybody is, but just in case. And I'll start with the top left corner, Joanne.
Oh, me. Yeah, Joanne Tuscan. I'm with Clan Munro, but I'm also secretary for Clanton Scottish and several other groups as well, but that's my role here.
And I'll assume that everybody has had enough exposure to my face in the newsletter and other things. So I'm just the chair. So let's, Janet, give us some information about yourself.
My name is Janet Kennedy. I'm the Canadian delegate for the Kennedy Society of North America.
Welcome.
Thanks.
All right, we have to toggle the mute unmute. Sylvie Theriault, I'm with Clan Gregor, editor for the Clan Gregor newsletter, and also scrutiner, translator for the Cassock one. But I let Joanne do most of the English stuff.
Ruth.
Yes, hi. I'm the delegate for the New Brunswick Scottish Cultural Association.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I did give some. I'm the delegate for Clan McKinnon Society. Is it now called Canada Scots?
It's we've been using the name Scots Canada but the actual formal name is still Clans and Scottish Societies of Canada.
Okay.
Until we have formal approval to use the replacement name, which is Scots of Canada.
Sure.
Scots of Canada has been pre-approved by Corporations Canada. So if membership accepts it, then it's a name that we're going to have.
It's a very trending thing in the United States with the St. Andrews Society. They went from the Illinois St. Andrews Society to Chicago Scots. Detroit became Detroit Scots. So it's kind of a euphemistic, simple, easy to remember kind of thing.
Yep.
Currently, I'm a commissioner from Michigan. We have about 24 commissioners out of all of our states and provinces and countries, and I serve on that committee. And we're also looking at trying to set up a heritage center on the Isle of Skye, which is a very ambitious project right now for McKinnon's. And but I've got a very good army, and I served for 16 years as chairman of the board, and grew from 90 to 498. So I had a great army. It's like the old line, when you get the right people, now it's the time to move on. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, and but we're doing very well.
Are you looking to take the Church of Scotland up on one of their locations at a good price for that museum?
Well, it's either that or our commissioner in Scotland has this building that's on an airstrip somewhere that he's involved in. But we'll take any space if we can get right now. Money is, charities are taking a big hit, and the legacy issue, where you give your estate or inheritance or some money as a legacy. And in the United States, before it was 1% tax. Now they're upping it to 14. That's going to discourage charities. And so they're already in trouble in the US, among a lot of other things. I just want to, oh, by the way, I am a dual citizen, and I want to come home, I think.
Yeah, it's a smart move.
No offense to anybody here, but yeah, yeah, it's
We've
it's chaotic. It's chaotic.
we've opened the doors to all my cousins and relatives down in California, and so
Oh, good for you.
So-
Yeah, thank you, please. I'm originally Nova Scotia. I was born in Cape Breton and Glace Bay, and coal mines closed down and were closing. My father saw the handwriting on the wall.
yeah.
So we ended up moving to Michigan, and the rest was history. But
Wow.
not to drag things out, but anyway, I'm honored to be here and honored to be part of the group here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for
We're
having me.
thrilled to have Clan McKinnon as a member.
Yeah, and
It's great.
welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Robert.
Yes, Robert Mackenzie. I'm on the board of the Clan Mackenzie Society of Canada and editor of their newsletter. And I've been a director at large with CASOC for a few years now. I'm not sure how many offhand, but a few years. And I've been involved most recently as a committee member with our group of board members who are looking at our bylaw revisions and policy updates. So nice to be a part of the meeting again.
Mel, we can't see you, but we definitely would like you to let everybody know who you are, and if you're having bandwidth issues, don't worry about the video too much.
There he is.
Hey.
Hi, Mel,
No.
my fearless leader.
The audio back.
Yep.
There. My voice might be a little bit off. I decided to pick up the flu when I got back from Cuba. So anyway, I'm in Dumfries, New Brunswick. I'm president of the New Brunswick Scottish Cultural Association. And we're just in the midst now of getting ready for the season of 4 Highland Games and Festivals, plus a couple of heritage fairs and some assorted other events coming up. I hope you can hear me when my voice is
Oh,
quite.
yep. Yep. You actually came through quite clear. You're getting ready for the busy season.
Yep. Or the silly season.
Yeah.
No, we're looking forward to it. There's, as I said, 4 Highland Games and Scottish festivals, and we get to all of them. We work at them, and we have a display there as well. And we'll be in Moncton, of course.
Excellent. Well, the normal thing that we're looking to do is go over the points that one, people have put in, or that the things that they have concerns about in that they provided when they registered, but also leave the floor open for other aspects of discussion. Janet, you had mentioned that the thing of most interest to you was the expanded membership, and I guess the question is, I guess I'll let you explain more about where's that interest, what's the basis of it.
Well, I was at one session a while back, and there was still a lot of things to hammer out as to what the expanded membership was going to look like and how it would actually work, how feasible it was to make it work. So I was wondering if that had any resolution yet, if you had more of a tighter handle, a better grip on that situation.
Yeah, one of the things that has been a key thing for us in basically working through the bylaws and what we ended up doing with it, and also the policies and procedures, which we're looking as being a core part of what the change is. It may surprise you or not surprise you that right now, Clans and Scottish Societies of Canada has nothing in terms of policies and procedures. It's all memory and tradition and what we do and what we might figure to do best as we go along. But there's not a policy document. There's only what's inside Joanne's head.
You
And
better
she
not lose
remembers,
Joanne.
yeah. Now, a bit of an explanation of what happened, what we've done since we had I guess the best way to describe it was we we tripped over stuff back in November.
Yeah.
And there were mistakes, as I think probably everybody knows. The motion to table was wrong. It was out of order. It shouldn't have been allowed, and basically a little bit of a train wreck. And I take responsibility for that to a great extent. But also thinking, fool me once, it won't happen again. What we did though is we went and looked and resolved that it made sense for us to take the path of transforming Clans and Scottish Societies of Canada to be the National Scottish Organization. The alternatives was to say, no, don't do it. And then to have a competing organization show up, which is what would have happened. And then CASIC not being part of that. The organizational members basically not being part of it, or there being competition for it and so forth. So we took the approach of going to the bylaws first and saying, well, how do we move them forward to what we need in order to have an expanded membership and clean up a lot of things that we needed to clean up in the existing bylaws. There's a lot of snags, is the term I like to use, and contradictions. And it's basically, some of it's from the history and some of it's from just old style of doing things. So in the end, we ended up looking and going, well, let's start with a fresh set of bylaws from the bylaw builder that Corporations Canada provides for not-for-profits. And we worked with that back and forth with lawyer and back and forth with ourselves to bring it to a point of what would be the optimal set of bylaws for the new form of the organization. And a key mandate that we were going through with this was to pull back all these little things that tend to cause issues, because when it's in the bylaws, you need the membership to change it. And some stuff just didn't make sense or would just be very arduous to do. So a lot of it got put into policies and procedures to say the board figures it out. That provides adaptability and flexibility. One of the things that was a good challenge for us, good in the sense that we worked through it, was adding a new membership class. And how do we deal with the existing membership class? How do we provide fair representation to what we ended up settling on as being households joining, and still maintaining the representation and the continuity? And what, frankly, my view is that our existing membership, organizational memberships, are the brand. They provide the image, the view. They provide what is they're the stalwart pillar of Scottish culture in the organization. And we wanted a way to have the future of the organization protect that. And there's a number of things that we've done in order to do that. One, we control, as the board and as the organization, we control how many household delegates show up. So we can never end up having all the household delegates who are elected by the household members override the organizational members. That won't happen. Some of the other things, there's little subtle pieces that got put in place. One of them is to change our terms for directors to be 3-year terms, but elected a third at a time, so that we get continuity, so that every year you don't have the potential for a new set of directors. And you have, and when you join and become a director, you think about it as not a sentence for life, but something that is a finite term. 3 years, 2 terms, 2 terms consecutive at the most. You can take a break and come back. So we put term limits in as part of the policies. We put term lengths that are more adaptive to continuity. and also provides security against, well, all of a sudden the organization is going to flip and change and be something else. So it's taken a lot of work. I would say that, Robert, you can tell me whether you agree or not. I think we've put in hundreds and hundreds of hours in this, and learned a lot in that process. And it's one of the nicest things is to the extent that it's been a collaborative process for us. So we solved the household membership things, and going with households was a key thing. One, this is more like what Scotland was. Scotland was households, right? Before we got the feudal system imposed on us in a more hierarchical type of structure. We operated in more of a community and a clan-based orientation that was built upon households as units. And when we were looking at do we get individual memberships? Do we have family memberships? No, households, because that's really what you want. You want to build in some immediate aspects of sustainability. So it's not like, oh, well, yeah, my dad was a member of the clan. No. The house is a member of, the household is a member of Scots of Canada. And we want it to seem just more natural for the youth and for the family members to say, well, I've been a part of that for 20 years. I've been in the household, and the household has been a member. That provides us just that little thing. What may just be a little thing, but I think it'll be important in terms of encouraging sustainability. There's a very practical aspect to that as well. One of the things that we've changed with the new bylaws coming in is membership is perpetual. So existing memberships, organizational memberships, are members forever until they say they don't want to be members anymore. Households, when they join, they're members forever. If we can't reach them, can't get in contact with them, or they say, hey, well, I don't want to be a member anymore, which is going to be a good sign to us that there's something that's going on. We will always be able to talk to them. We will always be able to reach out to them. We will always be able to provide something to the organizational members and to the households. And we'll just vary what the level is of what is provided to them as to whether they're active or inactive. Don't pay your dues, you're inactive. Pay your dues, you're active. Right? Now, there was subtle things that we had to do in terms of the articles and the bylaws in order to keep that within the legal regime that the Corporations Canada people wanted, that the not charity, or whoever runs it, not for profit. I get mixed up which term it is, because in the articles would boil down to us saying we can have two classes of members, voting and non-voting. But we had to put something in that said, for voting, you can exercise your vote if your dues are paid. Right? We couldn't say active, inactive, because then you have to explain this and explain that and explain that. And the more details you put in and the more explanations you put in, the more likely you're going to make a mistake, and there's going to be a technical things, and the more money that it's possible to end up giving lawyers somewhere down the road. So it's very simple. We have voting members in the articles. We have non-voting members in the articles. The voting members in the articles get to exercise their vote if their dues are paid. Now in the bylaws, that gets done. That shows up differently. We have 3 subclasses, and one of the subclasses that's added is the household delegates, who are elected from the households. But the whole criteria and the way the elections are going to occur and the numbers and so forth is going to be managed by board policies, which is a huge task that we've been working on, and we can show that later on. So I'm hoping I didn't deviate too far from that in terms of answering your question about, did we get that settled, worked out? Yes.
I guess, yes, indeed, you did get it settled, and I'm glad to hear that the first step was looking at the bylaws. That's really important. And the policies and procedures were necessary.
Well, when we looked at the bylaws, like to change the existing bylaws, I'll be truthful, last year when we took the first run at it, there was a whole bunch of things that the lawyers came back and said, you know, you should change this and you should change this and you should change that and you should change, and here we can clean up all of these for you. And I just made a decision to say, wow, that's going to overwhelm the membership. That's going to be way too much to do. And it would have, in terms of the context of the changes, because do you remember seeing the document that I put out to explain the changes that we had? It was 3-4 pages. So, I mean, that didn't get everything done. So one of the things we looked at was if we want to try to transform the bylaws, the existing bylaws, into what we need to do, it's going to take us a couple of years and a lot more money in terms of legal expense and a lot more risk in terms of it never happening. So that's why we said, let's just start with a fresh set. So
can I comment, Pete, here?
Sure, go ahead, John.
I'm brand new here, so pardon my ignorance on all of it. I have read I've looked at your work, and it seems overwhelming and very complex in terms of the bylaws. I say that in comparison, I guess, to ours. And if you have no objection, I'd like to send you a copy of our bylaws at some point. But one thing we do share in common, we have staggered terms. We go, it's basically, we have 5 board members, 3 elected for 4 years, then it's 2, then it's 3. So there is continuity. We have officers that aren't elected, the treasurer, newsletter editor, and we have a comptroller who kind of averages out our long-range projections for finances. We're not rich, but we have that. And they're not elected, but they are always included in our board meetings. And somebody once said, well, why do we have officers? It's not a board. I said, have you ever been to a board meeting and they don't have the CFO there or somebody who knows something about the operation? And so that took care of that. We meet every month and by choice. And the other thing is the when you said households as opposed to individual members kind of thing, is that in our case, we said if you're up to 18 years of old, you're part of the household. Once you're over 18, as by definition, an adult, then they want. But we have a lot more members than we have memberships. So that speaks to the household kind of thing. You also, the broad-based element in terms of involvement. For example, and I'm not saying that, I'm just listening to what you said and going beyond and being more inclusive. Like, for example, clans in the United States being a member, or Australia, or Europe for that matter. We have 92 members in France. We have 58 members in Belgium. We have 25 members in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And we have grants and funds, and the bagpipe band wears our tartan, and they ask for a grant, and we have grants, and we have a little bit of philanthropy. But the website that you currently have, are you happy with that, or is that a topic that's I'm not familiar with the inner workings of how that. Maybe you could elaborate or something.
Well, on the question of the website works for what our current needs are for our organizational members.
Okay.
And that website came about, it's not done. We had we've still got a lot of stuff on the old website that we didn't get to move to it. But the idea for that website was to service what was happening at the road show and let people connect and get access to our newsletters and so forth.
Sure.
So what will be in place for when the new membership class is available is something that will go far beyond that, and will probably take a fair amount of stuff that currently might be publicly visible and make it so that you end up as an organizational member will end up signing in and getting access to those things.
Are the people pretty happy with the idea of expanding and going outward beyond, let's say, into other countries or other areas?
We've never really stopped anybody from joining based upon where they are.
Sure.
So the last count, and there's that number 42, 42% of our members are American organizations.
Okay.
Or of the organizational
Sure.
members.
And I kind of got
right?
that idea just
Yeah.
looking at the list. Yeah.
Yeah. I think in terms of households, it would remain in Canada, but we haven't nailed that down. And in the bylaws we have a definition of households that we work through, and I think we're pretty happy with by saying that a household is a group of individuals having a common kinship, living together at the same physical postal address.
Sure.
And so the idea with the kinship is it's people who have blood ties, filial relationships, you're married, and step siblings, plus those with extended relationships through dependency for care. And that was something that we added as an umbrella to say, look, if you've got people that are relying on you, like you've got, you've got that brother who's disabled and could be in his mid-50s, he is kinship. And if he's living in the house with you, he's part of the household and he's a member of Scots of Canada. So we don't have to get into all of these little about, this age and still going to university and do financially dependent or stuff like that. It's just, do they have an extended relationship through dependency for care in various forms?
Right. I apologize for taking you off task. I didn't mean.
Oh no, that's fine. That's an important thing to talk about, though, is that how are we making this? And again, my sentiment was to have something that was closer to what we saw in Scotland prior to the imposition of English rules, which we don't want to get into the political aspects of all of that. And
I have one other question on the bylaws. Do you have policies as part of your bylaws?
Yes. In fact, we'll go through the round, and then when we're done, I'll pull up the screen to show you. I'll do a screen share of our policy of the site that we're working on we use right now for our policies, which will start, and that site will likely form a basis for what we were going to move to in terms of our future website. That kind the underlying software is what we'll end up using.
Thank you. Thanks for.
I'm doing a lot of talking here, but I'm wondering, Robert, did you want to jump in with anything on this?
Well, I think one of the key words that you used quite a bit there was sustainability, and every organization, I'm sure, has been faced with that issue, and CASOC certainly being among them. So what we tried to do in that whole household thing is to try to make our organization a little more inclusive, to bring more people into the fold that otherwise might not be so involved, and potentially give us a stronger base of members that we can build on going into the future. I think the challenge before us too in coming out of this is to look at our value proposition for those household members as we do with our organizational members. I think we've done a very good job in making headway with the organizations, as we've seen in the last couple of years under Bill's leadership and what we're calling the road show at the different games and events. we've really made quite a splash with that. So our challenge then with the households will be to ensure that we're giving something of value that those individuals in the household are benefiting from. So that's going to be kind of our lasting or our ongoing challenge as a board to make sure that we do that. And it'll be a lot of dialogue, meetings like this online, meetings face to face, and just conversations we have with people to make sure we get there. And obviously, I guess at the end of the exercise, though, for the organization, yes, we've changed our structure a little bit and opened it up to a wider audience. And we also will end up hopefully with our house in better order, if you will. We'll have a good, strong set of bylaws. That's our foundation. And the policies will be kind of ever evolving. We can work on those as a board and change them as need be, based on whatever's happening at the time. But as we'll look at, I guess, a little bit later in this meeting, we've developed a very strong base of policies to go with for the time being that complement our bylaws, if that makes sense. So, and again, the purpose of that is so that we don't have to constantly go back to the membership to make minor changes in bylaws when we realize, oh yeah, this isn't working practically with what we intended. By supporting it with policies, we can be a lot more flexible and nimble in making those changes as we go. So I guess that'd be what I would say about it. It's certainly been a very comprehensive exercise for our committee and our board, all told, to go through this. But hopefully the result will be well received in a couple weeks' time. And I think there's great opportunity here for CASOC and sort of realizing our mandate in a bigger and broader way going forward.
Yeah. Robert, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the challenge and the grief that we had trying to keep the concept of the youth as a subclass, and we ended up turning, first of all, thrashing about trying to figure out what was a good name, because you didn't want to say youth, you didn't want to say whatever, so we ended up having associate, and in the end, it got mangled because of what you have to do as far as the articles and the bylaws, that we turned around and said, you know what, we're just going to have to deal with the concept of associate member as a younger member, and the representation in that. We're going to have to deal with that in the bylaws. And that's the mechanism that we're going to take with it, because, and that was something that I personally felt very strong about, was that if you want the younger people to get involved, show them that there's the opportunity, show them that they have a voice, show it's like, because, you know, for years, and I know a lot of clan organizations have been going through this, oh, we got to figure out ways to get the youth involved. We have to figure out ways to get the youth involved, but nothing got done. So I last year said, you know what, I'm going to bring somebody in as a youth vice chair. Just some kind of action as symbolic of that, and it's paid off, because we got to do a display at College Royal and Guelph University last weekend, and clans. In fact, I have, where did I put it? I have a little thing of my trackers. Show that there was 5 clans that actually had their QR code scanned at the thing that they had, McNeil, etc. Which means that our organization got advertised, and people, and hopefully perhaps some delegates, some members for those organizations will show up. That was, and it's, you know, it's just incremental, small incremental things for getting the youth involved and getting the younger people involved. And it's just doing little things, pervasive, persistent and pervasive. And that was what we were trying to do with the associates, but it became too complicated to have it formalized in the articles and the bylaws. So we did it. We'll do it through the policies. Mel, or actually, I think next on my list was Ruth. You had concerns about you were interested in the legal aspects.
Yes, as you know, we talked off screen, offline, about the differences between not-for-profit and charities. I'm still a little fuzzy on this, based on the other organisation I'm peripherally involved with. Could you expand on what's really required and the different organisations just a little bit?
Well, there's two broad classes if we keep the banks and the financial institutions out of it, insurance companies out of it, there's two broad classes of organizations, of incorporations at the federal level, and that's for-profit and not-for-profit. Not-for-profit, as it says, you're not expected to accumulate funds. You can get permission to accumulate funds for specific things and have things designated and so forth, but you're not there to make money for your members. And there is the membership aspect for who ends up running the organization in the end. So in a regular organization, it's shareholders. Shareholders elect the board and elect the officers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But in a not-for-profit, it's the members that do that. And now you can get a designation you have to be a not-for-profit first, but you can get a designation from CRA, Canada Revenue Agency, to be a charity. And that means that that the CRA's looked and gone, yeah, you've got a good set of people that are involved, it seems, and the purpose for your organization aligns with what we believe you should be eligible for collecting donations for, right? That's the dot that gets connected. Are you doing things that you should be able to give out receipts when people give you money to do it? So a not-for-profit can't give out a charity receipt because they can do things that aren't necessarily charitable. And that was one of the kind of debates that we kind of thought about, because one of the options was to say, let's leave Clans and Scottish Societies of Canada as it is and set up a separate not-for-profit. And then that separate not-for-profit of Scots for Canada can do all kinds of stuff as a not-for-profit. Can essentially do everything except not give out receipts, right? And one of the reasons for really thinking about that was because of the number of charity receipts that Clans and Scottish Societies has ever given out, which, Joanne, is probably none. We don't know, but certainly not anything in our memory.
Not recently, but we have
Yeah.
given receipts for donations some time ago.
Yeah. So it's not really something we were doing as a charity. So so you have to be a not-for-profit first. And there's certain rules. You are governed by the same act, the act it's called. And that's on the website, actually. If you go to the scotscanada.ca website, underneath resources, there's a current copy of the act, which unfortunately is 75% exceptions, but that's the legal documents for you. And then you can have the financial, the revenue people, whether it's inland revenue. If you were in Scotland, I guess it would be. If it was in the US, it would be the IRS. And here in Canada, has to designate you as a charity, right? We only have one type of charity here in Canada. I don't know if there are others in different in the UK. I know there's different types. There's an older type, and now there's a specific type, which is what Clan Gregor is. Clan Gregor is an STIO, right? So, does that answer?
Well, yes, it's much clearer. Just one other question: when will the name Scots of Canada become the formal name?
Yeah. Should I answer that, Robert, and then get to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fine.
So the process. So the process is, and what I can do is, well, I can just quickly explain that. So the process is the special resolution goes to the membership at the April 13th meeting. and requires 2/3 of the people there to vote in favor of that special resolution. Then we turn around, the board signs the special resolution document, and we hand it over to the lawyer who submits it to the government, and we wait for their approval. When they do the approval, then the name will change and the new bylaws will come into effect. It's kind of rubbered, it's kind of stamped to be as of the date that the members approved it. So that's when we will actually be Scots of Canada.
You know, earlier on, I had a phone chat with Joanne, and I was remembering people would talk about cassock. And one time I had somebody come up to me and said, "Cassock, isn't that what a monk wears?" And so the acronym was something that, you know, it meant a lot to people who knew what it was. So I for one am really very happy about the shift to Scots of Canada, because it's clear, it's open, and people will understand immediately that this organisation exists. So I sincerely congratulate you and the board.
Oh, thank you, thank you. We did have a little roughness because we wanted what we were using, Scots Canada. But the guys that put that crap that goes on your lawn for fertilizer and stuff like that went and registered Scots Canada with 2 T's in every province. So we asked, you know, we asked the lawyer, well, look, see if you can reserve the name Scots of Canada, and that worked. So Robert, did you have something specific you wanted to say before we talk to Mel?
Yeah, it was just on Ruth's question about charity status and so on. I think you answered that very well. Just to add to that, you know, in the course of our work on revising bylaws and creating policies and so on, we haven't talked a whole lot about charities. And as was noted, it's not something that CASOC has really been. We're not soliciting donations. We're not giving receipts. It hasn't been in our practice. However, since we do have that charity status, it's to our advantage to maintain it at this point. You know, so the way it's been explained, every charity has to be a not-for-profit organization first, and the charity status is essentially a higher level of accountability and reporting that we need to do to CRA, and we do that. But it's not to say in the future that as our organization continues to grow and change, perhaps we will reach a point where we value that status and actually utilize it, and maybe we're, you know, becoming more involved in soliciting donations for certain things that support Scottish culture and so on. But at this stage, it's to our advantage, obviously, to maintain it and go forward with that. So just to add that point to what you said initially, Bill.
Yeah. There are 2 aspects to maintaining the status. Besides the fact that you can give out charities and so on. If we were to say we didn't want to have charity status anymore, CRA has what they call the revocation tax. And that revocation tax is basically all your money.
Oh, really?
So you basically liquidate everything, write off assets that you don't think you can get anything from, and give them a check for the rest of the money.
Wow, okay.
And their rationale is to protect the interests of the charities so that you're not taking the money into a not-for-profit. And I think it's kind of bogus, but I think it's a way for them to say, nah, you know, stay as you are and don't think that you can get all these donations and then become a not-for-profit and have fun with it. No. So Mel, we haven't heard from you yet.
I've been busy listening, playing catch up. One thing that you just mentioned a short while ago, you mentioned a meeting on April 13th.
That would be, yep, that's the next target date for the spring meeting,
Oh, for the AGM.
for the for the GM.
Okay,
yeah.
you changed it
yeah.
from the 6th.
Yeah, the 6th, well, it just didn't seem to be workable. That was a busy day for people.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay,
it was nice.
I was
it
one
would've-
of them.
Yeah, it was going to be nice to say, hey, we became this on Tartan Day, but oh well.
You just made my
people that,
made my schedule a lot easier to deal with.
yeah. Well, that's and actually we can't do it on the 6th anymore anyways, because we have to send out at least 21 days in advance the special resolution to people.
Good.
So
Again, I found it a little bit confusing on the classes of membership. That was my only point in the whole document. Everything else seemed to flow based on my experience. But there isn't room now for an individual member.
well, no, it's as a household.
It has to be.
So if you're an individual, you're gonna join as a household. And what we expect is that we're going to have the primary person is going to be the household representative, and households that just have one person will just have one person.
Okay,
And
that answers that.
and the kind of numbers that we're looking at in terms of fee, if people don't mind me saying it, we're looking at possibly an annual fee for membership of $20 to at least start off with. So whether it's for an individual or it's a household full of kids that are going to become future members in their own households in the future, it doesn't seem to be a big amount. And it seems to be fees, and that's you know, when the value is set at a good enough level, and the return and what you pay for that value is certainly not oppressive, I would have a hard time having anybody say, well, you know, I'm just an individual, can I be a member for $5 or $10 or $15?
We've maintained our individual membership at 22 for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And we're not going to change it. That seems to be the happy point.
Yeah.
Under the articles on page 4, you indicate that Class B members basically don't have a vote.
Yes, they don't have a vote.
But
and that is the household members. They don't have votes.
Okay, this is where I got a little bit confused. And then you go to page 7, where you get a little bit more detail. And then they appoint a delegate, and that person can vote.
Well, the household members have somebody who is the representative for the household, and the representatives will elect a delegate, one or more household delegates. So almost like an electoral college kind of concept. So there will be representation for households, but through the delegates that they elect. So, and it's just like, I have a vote, but I don't sit in Parliament. The member that I elect sits in Parliament. And that's the same concept.
Okay.
Households elect. Now, organizational members will have a delegate that they send to meetings. And this is another thing that we're looking at. How do we get this a little bit straightened out? Because originally, CASIC has always had the delegate being the person of contact and so forth. And that caused us a little bit of pain in terms of fixing some things and wording in the bylaw. And the solution was to step back, put on the business analyst head and say, well, wait a minute, what's really going on here? What we want from the organizations is we want a contact person for most of the stuff that's going on during the year, that we're going to be, sending out information, asking for input to the newsletters and all of these kind of things, and dealing with them with regards to renewals and all of that. That's what we want. That doesn't have to be the delegate. And the experience has been, for when we've been running meetings, it's not necessarily the person that we think is or record as a delegate shows up and is the delegate. We've left that as an option. So going forward, we're going to ask when the transition happens, we're going to say to organizations, who is the contact person? When it comes time for you to attend the meeting, send a representative, send a delegate. Because who has the vote? The delegate doesn't have the vote, right? This is where we ran into that little nuance of definition, and it cost us some grief. Delegates are not the ones who have the votes for organizations. Delegates are the ones who exercise the vote on behalf of the member organization.
Mhm.
It's the member who has the vote.
Mhm.
And that was an important distinction for us to
Mm.
get clear in our head and to have that implemented the way it's being implemented in the bylaws. So in the bylaws, we don't talk about organization delegates. It's members. Organization members are the ones who vote, and how they vote is through who they send, and we'll likely call them delegates. All right, does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. So
You
that'll-
answered, that was
yeah.
my next question, so you've answered it.
Yeah. So that means that when we when we send out when I send out the thing over the next couple of days for the notice of meeting with the special resolution, we're going to have a proxy form in place that will still work kind of old style. We talk about the delegates providing a proxy, but after the spring meeting, with the change that's in, it will be the organization member who will always assign what the proxy is. And it's not going to be my name, it's on behalf of Clan McKinnon or MBSCA. This is the proxy that we're going to assign, because it's not a delegate who has a proxy.
Mhm.
It is the member who assigns the proxy. It is the member who votes, right? So that should be an interesting transformation.
I was
Right.
just thinking the same word. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. But fortunately, we're going to have a few months before we get to our next annual meeting for us to do the change to say, organizations, we want you now to talk about, we want you to tell us who the contact person is. By default, we will take the name who is currently the delegate as the contact person. But now we don't need alternate delegates. When somebody joins, you don't have to tell us who the alternate delegate is. We don't care about the alternate delegate once we change to this mode. We want to know who's going to come and vote, represent the organization, the member at the meeting, and who the contact person is. Yes, well, it would be nice to have an alternate contact person, because that's really what was important to us. Lots of times we run into issues where we can't get a hold of the delegate or the contact person now, right? You know, they'll leave the organizations. This is a synchronization issue we have, right? Where what we have record as a record of delegates and who's president and who's this and who's all those kind of things, right? Our records don't sync with what our organization members are, and that's something else that we want to change in the website when we roll forward to that, is to allow the contact person to be able to go and submit changes to the information that's on the website, that's in our membership database. Right. Lots of stuff to do. Go ahead, John.
Can I plead ignorance before I begin? I'll preface my statement by ignorance. I'm probably a step behind, and I haven't kept up with all of the information that's been sent out. Is it April 13th is when the GM is?
Yeah, I'm going to send that. I'm going to send that out in a couple of days.
And that's in-house. That's in person, right?
That'll be by Zoom.
By Zoom.
Yeah, it'll be by Zoom.
Okay.
As a minimum, the Zoom is going to have to be involved because we have people.
Sure.
I think we still even have somebody that's over in the Arab Republic.
Ah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
You mentioned, is there a membership fee right now for CASOC?
Yeah, it's $50 a year.
Right.
And I believe, geez, I can look up your account and see if you guys have paid.
We have.
I've
So-
got actually the other day I went and looked and I went, oh, geez, I've got 4 people who haven't paid. Right.
Our fees, you talked about the annual fees for our members. We're at $25. So that's our annual, but we also have it kind of amortized. If you get a discount for 2-year, 3-year, 4-year, up to 5. If you take
Yeah.
a 5-year membership, it's $100. And we also have life memberships, and we were very leery about that. What would we charge, and how many would really want to become one, and all of that. So somehow, arbitrarily and capriciously, we said $600. We now have, and we just voted on that probably 6 months ago. We have 8 life members.
Yep.
That's a lot of money that comes in, and you give them little perks. You'll give them a pin or some little, something representing the organization. You also mentioned about I think philanthropic, the philanthropy part.
Yeah.
And I would just suggest, in fact, I sent it to you on a chat. If any of you haven't gone to our website, it's real simple, www.themckinnon.com. But we also have information, and our life is really simple in terms of how I've got a great webmaster. She's also our membership chair. And basically, you can sign up for either a philanthropic or grants. We give 4 grants a year. And so that that works out pretty well. And everything else there is pretty self-explanatory, but I'd suggest you take a look at maybe our website, and I'm going to send you, Bill, maybe a copy of our, or at least an attachment to our bylaws. So anyway, I just thought I'd share this. I'm not sure I've got another commitment a little bit, but I'm with you for a bit, but I just wanted to share a couple of those things. I hope I didn't throw you off on your agenda.
No, it's the purpose is this discussion, and John, you make a good point, and this is something that I've always encouraged is, no matter what business I've been in, is make it easy for them to give you the money, right? Not go full Ferengi and say once you have their money, never give it back, but provide no snags. And we saw that with in the first time we went out to Quebec and we had the poster up, we saw somebody actually click the QR code, go through, cling, 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 and PayPal joined right away. And
That's
it's
what
like,
we use.
you guys are genius.
That's what
Not,
we use.
oh, I'll send you a request and you can mail me a check.
Yeah.
No. Cling, 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 cling.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's our system.
Yeah. So, and that's what we'll have. We'll have that.
Good.
We'll have that for when people join. No, we're not taking money at the booth. We're not going to do any of that. No money at the booth. Nobody carrying cash. No nightmares. You know. Now, meanwhile, I've had clans that have joined literally by reaching in their pocket and pulling out a $50 bill and giving it to me. But that's a different story for organizations. But for households, no, it'll be all on the sites and totally snag this and use Google Pay and Apple Pay and who knows, maybe even Bitcoin cryptocurrency or whatever the youth want to do.
Keep it simple.
Right, just cling. So, Mel, did we cover things from your perspective?
No, everything else seemed to flow very well to me.
Okay.
And I was just basing it on my own experience dealing with our own constitution and bylaws. I guess the only thing I would add, you talked about not-for-profit and charitable. We're not-for-profit, and it does give us a lot of flexibility on how we deal with money. Also, we can still receive donations.
Yeah. But you can't give out charity.
We're under the province of New Brunswick as a not-for-profit.
Yeah. But can you give out charity receipts,
No, we
tax
can't.
receipts? No,
No.
so that's the big, now, in the end, I think, I'm trying to remember, what was the context of this? Oh, one of the things when we're going through the policies and procedures, was looking and saying, well, if somebody goes and does something on behalf of Scots of Canada, some organizations issue charity receipts. Was it, I think that was with you, Robert, where where
Yes,
instead of paying you for the expense, they'll issue a charity receipt.
right.
And that's great, I think, from the perspective, it minimizes what your cost outlay is. The reality, though, is for somebody that's doing it, what you get as a tax break is anywhere from 40, I think, what was it, 40 to 47%. So if I gave 1,000, went and did stuff and got a tax receipt from CASIC for $1,000, it would only benefit me about $450. So I'm still making a cash donation to CASIC, a net cash donation, because the government doesn't reduce your taxes by all that amount, and charitable donations are not refundable at the national level. So if you didn't have any tax to pay, and you had an extra $450 in money coming back from a charity donation, the government doesn't give that to you. You can, if you got somebody else you can pass it on to, that's fine, but the government won't send you that in a check. It's a non-refundable tax reduction, right? So there's varying levels of what that benefit for the charity is anyways, in terms of what it represents as a tax deduction to people. And it falls into one of the challenges that I have with volunteers, because we had a thing back at the last meeting where they were saying, oh, well, I do stuff for my clan or my family and I never submit the receipts for it. Well, that's your clan or your family. That's not an CASIC, and that's not something. And I think that one of the problems we have at times with volunteers is we automatically assume they're going to make donations. They're not actually taking the money out of our pocket, but they're not going to get compensated for possibly the admissions or for the travel time or the accommodation if they pay for that. We just assume, well, you're volunteers, you're going to pay for all of that yourself, right? And I think we need to be a little bit more open with regards to that. So, but that's my opinion. It looks like we've lost Wayne. So Wayne is out basically in Algonquin Park almost. So his receptivity is, as he says, it's 2 bars or no bars. Because I was going to go to him next in terms of if he wanted to, but no luck. He might come back. So, any other questions or that at this point? Would you like to see the policies and procedures site?
I don't know if I'll have the time tonight. I have another commitment, but
Okay. Well,
I will look over.
Well, you'll see
it's already out there, isn't it?
yeah, you'll see the video. Well, you would have if you go to the previous recording, you can see it.
Yeah.
And you'll see that, and this video will become available.
I will do my homework before that meeting. I promise.
All right.
Okay. I'm just going to say it was a pleasure seeing all of you and hearing from you. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak and to share. I hope I wasn't too much.
And John, you've got a great representative up here in Canada. Yeah, and he's a young guy. And I'm looking forward to getting him involved in the associate aspect. Get
All
the
right.
youth input.
That's great. Thank you so much for having me tonight too.
You're welcome.
There,
All right.
there is another information type meeting like this on Sunday, the 30th of March.
Yep.
30th of March.
It's in the afternoon. It's another information session
Okay.
Yep.
before
Got
the
it.
final
30th of
vote.
March.
Yeah.
Do you have a time?
3-ish?
3.
Yeah, probably 3.
I'll put 3-ish.
Yeah. It's the thing is if we've got people in the UK, it ends up running a little later.
I hear you. I know.
And so that's always a balance, trying to get something that
I
works.
know. One of our new
West
board
Coast.
members is from Germany, so we had to
Oh.
change our whole time frame.
Yeah,
having a
so
meeting.
that would be 3 o'clock in the afternoon is going to be
Yeah.
is 8 o'clock, 9, not maybe even 9 o'clock, depending
Yeah.
on.
So yeah, that
your
was Stu.
DST.
Now we have an international member on our board, so
Yeah,
that's
well,
kind
that's
of
great.
Yep. Thank you again. I'll allow you to continue and run the meeting, but it's a pleasure seeing you, meeting you, Joanne. Good to see you. Nice to see everyone. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, John.
Good
Hope
night.
to see you
Take care.
At the games in Canada. What? John? Oh, he's gone.
All right, so let's have a look at the policies and procedures site. Actually, we put up, so a little bit of explanation. I've got some domain names that I've had from previous ventures, etc. And we've just put that to use. And the one that we're using for this purpose is personification. So right now there is actually board members have access, but with personification, it was easy for us to put with the newest version of a content management system, put something like this quickly in place that lets us have joint access to what the bylaws and articles are, what the policies are, and what we're building as procedures, which we don't have much in right now. We've just got a planning document for it. But with that, I can click policies, and we've got the policies listed. One of our challenges at the beginning was how do we name these? And in this case, what we took the decision to do was to say, we're going to provide a name policy-8, which means that it's associated with a section in the bylaw of 8 for policy, procedures, and resolutions. So this is a list of what all of these are for policies. We don't have them all done at this point. What we've got is a document that allows us to see where we are with those. So you can see we've got ones where we're going, all right, some things are not needed. Some things we do have, they're needed. And then for something like membership conditions, that's an important one. It's the part that talks about what are the subclasses and classes of membership. And we're tracking that, yeah, it's something we need a policy for. So far, myself and John have reviewed it, and so we've put our initials there. One of the nice things about using a content management system, and is everybody able to see this okay?
Mhm.
One of the nice things about using a content management system is that we can put links in. So in this case, I can go to membership conditions here, and that takes me to the policy, right? And on that policy, I can click this button and go look at the actual bylaw. And this is the bylaw for it. I can go back and look at the policy. So with membership conditions, because of the level of complexity, we've actually put in some additional, if you will, sub-policies. So we can say, well, here's the policy for Class A voting organization members. Okay, and we list what the criteria is. We say, what's the admission things? What is the membership dependent upon? There's requirements for becoming and maintaining membership, and so on. All right. And if I go back and look at policies, you'll see all of those ones are listed. So for policy 10, we've got A, membership committee. There's a thing about membership committee. It's two or more people appointed by the board. So no, I'm not saying we didn't have policies in clans and Scottish societies of Canada. We just had them in our head. And sometimes we went, well, it's not convenient to do it that time, this way, this time, so let's do it that way. Or I'd be asking Joanne, so what do we do in the past about this? Right? So, is this making sense for people? There's some things where if I go to here, we can see, say, let's see, it's this one, term limits. That's still being worked on. And what's in here is not what we've kind of agreed to yet at this point, because we're talking about 3-year terms, and I think we've settled we're going to update this to say it's 2-year. Or no, it says 3-year terms. But anyways, this is something that you can see in that box. There's no initial. So Robert and John and I are not saying, yeah, okay, we're okay with it. It's still being worked on. Okay. If something's a draft, it's still being worked on. Like this one here, number of directors. So we've pretty much just reiterated what is in the bylaw, but we probably need to go and do something with regards to policy here, because we don't talk about which should be in here. What happens if there's a vacancy? What happens in terms of appointment of interim directors, right? Which we kind of realized when you appoint a director as the board, as interim director as a board, you have to stick with that person until the next GM. Does everybody know that? The act says only the membership can get rid of a director. Doesn't matter where that director came from. If the board appoints somebody as a director, that director is a director until the next general meeting or next elections are held. So there's lots of interesting things that we learned through this process of going through the act. So one of the things that is the great power with this is, say, if I go into something like this, banking arrangements. So with banking arrangements, this is where we've gone and said, you know what? We want to have at least 3 arm's length directors or officers as signing authority. We don't have anything like that in the bylaws. So, but this is what we want for bank authorizations, at least 3. And arm's length means they can't be related. I'm assuming most people know what those are. Always have 2 signing authorities at arm's length from each other for all banking transactions, with the exceptions of deposits. And a deposit-only agent doesn't have to be a signing authority. Okay. Now, if we want to update this policy, because I have the level of authority in terms of making changes, I can go into edit mode for it, and I can actually make changes.
So should that be Treasurer must reside in Canada?
Well, if I want to say must reside in Canada, I can do that. Okay, and I can save it, save and close, and there. Now, if next week we come along and we go, wait a minute, that's not what we decided. That's not the way it should be. I could go in and change it back, but there might be a lot of things that were changed. And we want to know for sure what was going on. So I can actually go to versions for this and say, you know what? I want to look to see what it was like before. And it'll actually show me what the version was. You can't see that pop up, I don't think, can you?
No.
No? Okay. So you'll have to trust me what this does. I have a pop-up that comes in and shows me what the previous what that version was. I can select two versions and say compare them, and in the pop-up it actually shows me the um, shows me um, the difference between these. Unfortunately, it doesn't highlight things enough, but it kind of let me see what some changes were. And sorry, I guess what I can do, let's do this, because I forgot about that. I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to go back and share the screen. All right. I'm sharing the entire screen. So I can go into a previous version, and you should be able to see what it does. It's going to pop up a preview of the previous version. Do you see that? So it lets me look at an earlier version. And that was one of the important reasons for going to the new version of software that we're using and using that for this, so that we could have versioning for our policies and procedures, etc. There you can see it said should reside. Everybody see that?
Yep.
That's what it was. Now I can go to there and I can say restore it. And he's gone and he'll go and put that back. So when I go and look at banking arrangements, you can see the treasurer is now back to, it's back to should reside. Okay. I definitely would not want to be doing this using Word or Google Docs. It just would be brutal. The fact that we can have custom layouts for, I can do the list of what the policies are, and I can link back and forth and put in tools like this that allow me to have a working status document and link to something that I need to edit right away. It's just amazing. So this will be available, policies and that will be available to our members.
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah, our members will be able to see it upon signing in. All right. I don't think we want to make it entirely public. Bylaws should be public, but policies, procedures, how we're actually going to do the thing, that'll be in the accessible through login in the back end.
It's been one of my comments along the way throughout this process is, being involved with a clan society myself, that has its own bylaw and or policy issues from time to time. This is another benefit of membership in CASOC or Scots of Canada, is that we can see these policies and bylaws and say, hey, we don't have our organization doesn't have a policy on banking or investments or whatever it is. And let's look at see what CASOC has as an example, and we can perhaps write our own based on that. So it's beneficial to members that we have this process underway, and that it's in the future going to be something that they can see and benefit from as well.
Make use of. The product designer that I'm hopefully will be able to get involved for the Scots of Canada app and website did ask, geez, why would you not give a lot of these capabilities as something that, as a tool that your members could take advantage of as well. And it's like, yeah, that'd be great, because I'm sure that it would be nice if we've got all these things for managing membership, and you're an organization that doesn't have a membership tool, doesn't have a tool for managing your bylaws and your policies and procedures and stuff like that, then yeah, it would be nice for Scots of Canada to say, well, this is a service that we can let you hook into at, you know, at cost, if anything, right? Because it's, I mean, our mandate is promotion of Scottish culture and heritage. So that will, anything that we can do to help our organizations makes sense. All right.
Actually, I am going to jump in if I may, Bill.
Sure.
It's just I'm echoing what you've just said, and just to the other people participating in this meeting, Bill has already very generously given his time to another nascent organization, the leader of which has got zero business experience, just a lot of passion and enthusiasm. So again, I'll acknowledge what you're just saying right now, Bill. It will be a tremendous benefit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I certainly don't mind sharing what I've learned with this. It's been quite an experience. And of course, what we know is going to happen is, you know, as we get membership involved in doing some things and stuff like that, we're going to learn as well, and be able to adapt our policies, because people will. The world of technology changes. The world of our culture and society is going to change, and other organizations are going to be able to adapt and change, and us, and we'll learn from them, as long as we keep them part of what the whole process is, right? So definitely, you know, one of the things that's not on here that we are going to want to have in here, we don't talk about a policy and procedures or governance um, um, committee. That's not there yet. But when we do get to that point, we will add a thing about governance committees. All we've got is this committees of the board, which basically is a quick um, research and dump into this in terms of, or I shouldn't say dump, but load into this in terms of how committees of the board work.
Sorry, may I ask?
Mm-hmm.
What could you define the concept of governance in this capacity? In this context?
Well, it'd be a review of policies and procedures, and there's two parts to that. One, are we doing things the way we're saying that we're doing things, and what should we be looking at in terms of adopting or changing with regards to what our policies and our procedures are, and finally, what impact could those have with regards to bylaws? Should we ever have to need to go back and change things in the bylaws? I'm hoping that that's not going to be the case, at least for my involvement, which I hope is a couple of decades and one way or another. However, who knows, right? Right. And I'm sure that nobody could foresee what we would be doing in terms of processes and procedures and all of those things back in the early 70s, before internet.
Mm.
So what else is, what could be in the future? Well, who knows? But we need to have a standing committee for policies and procedures and stuff like that. If we get to the point of size as far as household membership goes, and we need to end up hiring people to do stuff, then we're going to have a committee that's dealing with human resources or finances and or other things that we're not even thinking about at this point, right? these are living documents. That's the best way to think about this. These will constantly be revisited and adapted as the need of the organization grows. And that was one of the really important things in terms of putting in these kind of tools that lets us do these things.
And Bill,
Keep track of where we are. Yes, go ahead,
I,
Robert.
I'm probably stating the obvious here, but what we're looking at on the screen here is a glimpse of the tool that we're using to develop and edit and modify these
Yep.
documents going forward. But just to be clear on it, and I'm sure everybody understands this, but we're not going to go in as directors or officers or anything like that and just change policies on the fly. Obviously, everything that we do this in this way would have to be approved by our board, right? So if we're making a change to a particular policy, regardless of what it is, that would come on the agenda for a board meeting and be subject to approval by resolution and so on. So I'm sure that's obvious, but just to be clear on that, this is just a great tool for tracking all of those changes and keeping a live version of it available to everyone.
We've got the column there for it's reviewed. Reviewed is when John and Robert and I and anybody else that ends up getting involved goes through and says, all right, we're happy with this. Let's take it to the board and get the board to approve it. And then then that'll be indicated in the board approved. So as you see, none of that review has been done at this point. And the board approval, no board approval has been done. Now, what we have told the board is, look, there's a lot of stuff in here that you're going to have to look at. We've given that as a warning because, you know, I kind of feel with it that we're merciless at times or I'm merciless at times with the stuff I throw at the board, but it has to be done. Right. And it's not only this, but we've got another, like we just had a spreadsheet go out that talks about the officers because we're settling on the different types of positions in the organization. So we did it as a spreadsheet. So we've got directors, and you know, you want to know what the term limits and the length of term and term limits and restrictions and stuff like that, and who votes for them. And then we've got executive, which are the chairs and vice chairs. And then you've got officers, which we've classified president, secretary, and treasurer as being officers. The distinction between executive and officers is that officers can be employees and really are are at the what's the term? The board basically controls them 100%, right? Executives are elected by the board as opposed to what we're currently doing. And again, at the pleasure of the board. So if the chair starts to screw up, you can vote me out. Doesn't take the membership to do it. Put in somebody else, right? And then the other positions that we have are, yeah. So we've got directors who are really constrained, like you're really constrained by the act with regards to the directors. Membership elects them and membership unelects them. Directors, executive, officers, then advisors. So we have advisory council, we have advisors, we have an advisory board, and patrons, and then patrons. And we have in our chart different things that have to do for those. And again, the advisory board and patrons operate under the authority of the board of directors and are accountable to the board. Their role is advisory and non-binding, and they do not have fiduciary or legal responsibilities for the corporation. and that was a little challenge, but I think we were happy with, at the last board meeting, with establishing term limits and term lengths for those different positions, and now we're going to implement those into the bylaws. Right? I'm missing a capability in this software, and I haven't figured it out. It's just really, I just haven't had time. I would like to be able to be able to go and attach additional documents. So when we have something in, we can attach some actual PDFs to or other things, a spreadsheet or something like that. Right now, we're keeping we're keeping some of the things for the board to look at, such as our budget and our event planning and that. We're keeping that on on Google Drive. But eventually, it'd be nice to be able to access it through here. So. Any questions about this?
I think it's incredible. I think it's really such a positive step in the right direction, and in a necessary step too in this climate as well.
Well, thank you. I think as John and Robert and I know, there's been some heavy lifting that we've been doing.
Oh, I can see that.
And you know, when it comes to, like, you know, this is one of the things we found with the position stuff. We were getting tooling along, doing our policies and stuff like that, and then realizing, wait a minute, we're getting some muddling in terms of, you know, we've got things about term limits and lengths and that in one policy, and we've got it in another policy. So that was it's big enough that we've been starting to get a little bit confused and have to pull in some additional tools to help us keep it organized. So, but I guess that's a good sign that it's that big, right? One of the things that I realized I didn't turn on, and I should, is what I have on the Scots Canada site, which I didn't turn on in this software, and which is too bad, because it'd be nice to type in a keyword in the new site and be able to have the search results come up like this, so we can actually see what the policies and those things are, where those terms are. So, and that, I think, maybe is something we need sooner than later, so I'm going to put it on my to-do list. In the underlying software, it's really just it might just be enable a few things and then figure out where it shows up in the members. So like here, I can see that if I search on the Scots Canada site, you see it shows up. There's the page for them, for Clan Mackenzie. It shows up on the home page. It shows up in the member list. It shows up in the clan lookup page, and it shows up in the name lookup page. Right. So it's underneath the covers. Oh, and there's more. Underneath the covers, it shows up in Scotland Shop, and on the Montreal, because it's a Scott Mackenzie is involved with the Montreal Highland Games, and Clan Cameron has something about it. I don't know what that is. There you go. So it's showing up in somewhere in one of their articles or one of their lists. But we'll put that search thing on the personification site, and it'll be on the future site for thing. It's been really handy for me at times to quickly look to find some things. All right. Is there anything else I can show people? Any questions?
Bill, one other thing comes to mind here. I'm not sure if I missed it in the very beginning or not, but just in terms of our bylaws that we're talking about, and the revisions or rewriting that we've done, it hasn't been just the work of the committee or Bill. I know that we talked about the bylaw builder. That's part of the that the government provides, but we have actually had the bylaws as proposed have been vetted by legal counsel as well. So, and that was, you know, done to ensure obviously that we're in compliance with the act where necessary. And I just wanted to state that just so everyone's aware that these aren't, you know, shooting from the hip bylaws or anything like that. They've been very carefully crafted and vetted to ensure that we're above board and compliant in every way that we can be. So just to make that point.
Yeah, and you know, our legal contact, Ryan Mossoff, he's been excellent in terms of pointing out some things where he says, you know what, they're not going to like this, or it should be. There's some things that we might run into some stickiness with, and that was really instrumental in us pulling back on the associates, on having associate delegates as formally listed in the bylaws. It was just, and also us in the articles, updating the articles to say you're a voting member, but you only can exercise your vote if your dues are paid. All right, and that allows us to finesse that with the advice from the lawyer to say, in your policies, make sure that you are straightforward in terms of saying, hey, when it comes to proxy, you have to be a voting member. When it comes to quorum, is it voting members who are part of quorum, or is it members who are part of quorum? So those are things that we have to make sure that we get straightened out, so that there's no challenges with regards to interpretation, if it ever came to that. Right. But thank you, Robert. It's a very good point.
Bill, could I ask a peripheral organizational question?
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the household member, and Mel, I hope you don't mind. I'd like to use perhaps the situation I have with New Brunswick as an example. So hypothetically, then, as I understand this evening's discussion, so I am a number of one living in this house at the moment.
Yeah.
I could take out a household membership, correct?
Yes.
Now, currently, and I'm looking lovingly at my beloved leader here, Bill Fitton, I'm also a delegate for that organization. So would there be any restriction on that type of association? I could be an independent member, but also a delegate to an organization.
Yes. One of the things, though, I think we've started to work into the policies is we're going to ask. We definitely would want to discourage, but I think we have it in. Let's go to membership conditions. Go to the policy. Go to household delegate members, and there's no reason why a household cannot be part of something else. We didn't see that there was a easy way to turn around and say, well, if you're in Clan McKinnon, you can't join as a household. For one thing, it might not all be McKinnons in the household, so it didn't make sense for that. But one of the things that we want to try to discourage is somebody who is in a position of leadership for an organization member should not be a delegate for the households.
Would you say that again, please?
Someone who is in a position of leadership for an organization member is not eligible to be a household delegate.
Okay. I understand. Yeah. All right, then that leads on to the next question. What if there is a conflict of interest?
For, in which term? In which way?
Well, in a household group, if there's a disagreement about, say, a policy proposal.
Well, here's one of the interesting things about a not-for-profit, and I don't think people get this, is that if you are a member of the board, if you are coming to vote, you have to look closely at what is the circle of interest that you're using that you're applying in your representation. And for us, when it comes to the board, if you are on the board, your only responsibility is what is best for the organization.
Right.
Right. If you're acting as a household delegate, your responsibility is to represent the households who elected you, not any clan, family, or other thing that you're there. The reason you are the household delegate is because you are representing the households. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be the household delegate. Right? Does that make sense? Go ahead, Joanne.
Thank you, Ruth. Any individual household doesn't get a vote. The households, perhaps in a regional geographic area, have someone who represents all the households in that area, and that person is the one that gets the vote. So if within an individual household of many members, if they disagree with each other, that may or may not affect the final vote because those people don't get a vote, if you see what I mean.
I'm not
Does that
sure.
make sense?
I'm not sure I do. If there's a conflict within a household, they cannot then put forward
Well,
Sure they can. They can put forth their opinions to whoever is representing all those households.
Yeah. See, a household itself has a representative, and that's basically the point of contact for the household.
Okay.
And that representative is who ends up having the vote to elect a delegate. It's not like 5 people in a household, there's going to be 5 votes for the delegate. It's the representative of the household that votes for the delegate. Right. And the delegate, as we say here, there are specific duties to undertake, such as representing the interests of the household members.
So more than one household,
Yeah, more than one household. Right.
because otherwise you'll have 20,000 votes.
Yeah, and that's and you know, it's like the concept that we use in our representative democracies, which is you elect somebody as your representative, as your member of parliament or provincial parliament, right? Or like in your sorority, you have people that are represent the chapters in the sororities. So, and we do expect to hear about conflicts inside the household, right? And part of what we want to do, though, is to say, well, one of the areas of concept are going to be what the old people want and what the young people want. So we're going to ask, when we get to we're going to ask households to also provide us with an associate representative. And we can use them to vote for associate delegates. And associate delegates can be listened to. Getting them as formal class of memberships and stuff like that just ended up being too hard. But they will be able to talk to our associate vice chair and leave it to the associate vice chair to have ways of getting input in that too.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, it's one of the early thoughts in terms of this fermenting many, what seems to be many years ago, was to say, hey, if you're a member, if you belong to an organizational member, you can't join as a household, or you can't join as an individual. And I just felt, I don't know, is it enforceable? Is it something that you would really want to do? Right? Is there room to say, hey, the value that is being given by Scots of Canada as a national Scottish organization is supplementary and complementary to what you would be getting as a clan organization. And we're not there to replace the clan organization, right? And one of the things that we can eventually look to do is say, geesh, we've got a whole bunch of members who are a clan that doesn't have an organization. Should we designate a specific household delegate for them, right? As a support thing. That was something that was one of the concepts earlier on. Provide a safety net for those clans and family organizations that are going through their rough times. Like, was it Robertson that shut down? Donachie, yeah.
Well, they separated, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something that we can consider is that. You know, the board's going to have its work cut out for it when it comes time to figuring out who the household delegate, how many we need, and how and what are their representations to be. Certainly, we couldn't do that in the bylaws. How many household representatives, how many household members are we going to have? Right? Are we going to have, but when it comes time to the next AGM, are we going to have 100? Are we going to have 1,000? Are we going to have 50,000? We don't know. So how can we decide how that whole structure and stuff like that is going to work? And to begin with, in the bylaws, we have to leave it all to the policies and procedures and the board, right? So another little heads up on the kind of work that might end up being involved. Better make it pretty simple with an app. Go ahead.
I thought I understood this, but now I'm not sure. I thought, okay, a household can be one person. It can be several. Is there a finite number?
No.
Okay. I thought we were dealing with one household at a time, but I'm now getting the impression that you're lumping households together.
Well, households need to have representation, and they will do that by households electing a delegate to be represented. And the number of delegates that we end up saying are going to be available, we can scale based upon what the numbers in that are, and whether they're going to be regional delegates or for whatever. We haven't worked that out yet.
Okay.
But so delegates, so there'll be somebody in the delegate who can say, somebody in the household who says, I vote for that delegate. And how we will run the elections, we haven't worked that out either, right?
So you've got to deal with households that could be anywhere in Canada.
Yep.
Or the US, possibly.
Possibly.
Logistically, isn't that going to be a major headache?
Well, that's why it all has to be done through a web app, through an app that they're going to be dealing with.
Who makes the decision which households go with which households?
Ooh, the board's going to have to make that decision.
Okay.
So it might be very easy to begin with. There might be 1,000 households. When it comes time to say, okay, it's time for us to get some household delegates for the upcoming AGM, in which case the 1,000 households, we would pick a number of delegates that they're going to vote for, ask for nominations for delegates, and then figure out how that vote will occur. There might be 3 delegates. There might be 30. There won't be more than organizations or members. I guarantee that.
Okay, the next meeting, I'll probably ask another question on this. I'll have to think about
Okay.
it. I don't want to drag this out, so.
Yeah. And you know what? We're going to find nuances on this. You know, like some of what we're doing is you know, like with the thing about saying, well, you know, we don't want you to be try to be a household delegate when you're also the chair, chief, president, or an officer of an organization member. That's kind of double dipping, right? And it may never occur that it's going to be something like that, but somebody might look to find some way to game the system, right? And that's the reason for having these things in policies and procedures, because then the board can change the policy if we want to, if we need to, right? And put stop gaps in, such as not all the directors are getting replaced at the same time. Staggered terms for directors. Right? We're not hard coding anything in terms of percentage representation and so forth. Right? Much as I think maybe we should have something in here where that says in the bylaws, perhaps even say, number of household delegates shall not exceed organizational members. I don't think it's good optics to do that. I think that's something we can manage by policy and procedure. Right. So, you know, it's a fine balance between saying, look, we want to have a much larger membership and open up to all those people who show up that aren't in clans and families or do not have opportunities to belong to something, to give them something to belong to, while also saying, well, yeah, we want that much larger thing. We want them to have representation, but we want to maintain the branding and the management of the soul of the National Scottish Organization in the hands of the organizational members. Now, is that the right thing to do? My gut says that's the right thing at this point, but I might be wrong. I don't know. Certainly open to people's thoughts on that. Right. So we go ahead. I'll mute.
Okay. The other thing too is that there's nothing also that doesn't stop it going the other way. If they come to the tent, they're joining Scots of Canada, but then they see an organization that's more at large, like your organization, Mel, which is in New Brunswick. It's not specifically Moncton or that. So there's that other aspect where we can promote. I just had a thought about at a game promoting specifically organizations that are not necessarily clan.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to change that when when somebody comes to the tent and they identify themselves and we look it up and it turns out they're Lamont, we're going to still say, hey, there's Clan Lamont. Go join them. Right? That's going to be the best thing for them. Right? Now, what we will run into is when there's, you know, somebody that comes to the tent, and I guess this is perhaps one of the things we have to resolve. But somebody comes to the tent, and it turns out that they're Clan MacLeod, right? Or not Clan MacLeod, but Clan MacLean. So they're Clan MacLean. Do we say, well, you know, we know nothing about Clan MacLean. We don't know if they've got an organization or anything. but you should go join them. I think I would say to them, join Scots of Canada, right? Because Clan MacLean's not a member. Evil of me, isn't it? Or cruel but just.
Well, until they get
right?
their act together.
But see, I don't, and lots of times we don't even know if there's a clan organization out there for some people. We don't see them, right? So, but definitely the idea, the point is not to compete against existing organizations, and certainly we want to funnel people to their existing organizations, and certainly I don't think that with the kind of price points that we're talking about, right? Mel, I can see that. Why wouldn't somebody be a member of something down in the Maritimes and also Scots of Canada if they say, yeah, okay, fine, I want those benefits as well from both sides. Why not?
Or you simply want to encourage two organizations.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
I didn't hear that
Yeah,
comment.
Sylvie, you're muted.
Oh, but I thought
I didn't hear the comment. Could you say that again, Sylvie?
I mean, you could belong to more than one organization. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
And because I want to support, the Scottish culture, so I can belong to more than one and spread out my wealth, my mere $20 here and there.
Mhm.
We're running into periods of quiet. It's 9:30. I'm sure there will be more for us to think about, and we can bring it up on the thing, and I'll get the notice of meeting out, and certainly from some of the things that we talked about tonight, I'm going to send out the notice of meeting with a special resolution, and I'm going to send out a doc, and I'm going to send out some material about it, explaining um, some of the rationales for why are we doing this, what the vision is. Certainly touch on the aspects of this is not meant to replace existing organizations, which we know there's some very good ones out there, and there's places where there's nothing for people, or there's nothing that makes sense for people. So we're trying to fill in those gaps. And the key thing for me is that if Clans and Scottish Societies of Canada doesn't do this, it will happen. A national Scottish organization will happen anyways, and it would be better for us to be at the helm and be a major part of it rather than become, which I think the danger would be if we don't do this, we will become irrelevant. Joanne can attest that we've gone through extinction level events in the past, and I'm doing one of the most important things that any leader can do, which is not have fail when I'm gone. And if I was won the lottery tomorrow, what happens to Clans and Scottish Societies of Canada? Right? What happens to the roadshow? And it doesn't look good. So let's grow the organization. Let's get to the point where we've got a much larger resource pool, and we can get people in compensated to do some of the enormous amount of grunt work that I'm doing at this point, which Sylvie can attest to, right? I've gotten it down, but like the newsletter was taking it sometimes up to 30 hours of work to do. Yes, it's huge, but I think it's what we need. And there's more to do. So, on that note, closing remarks, anybody? Email's always available and the phone number's always available. I don't mind having a call or anything like that. And we'll see you soon, Ruth. All right. Okay.
Well, Bill, just to say from my perspective, I truly congratulate you and all of the significant the board members. And I think the work has just been extraordinary. So my
Well,
congratulations.
thank you. Well,
And
thank you
same
very
goes for
much.
me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mel.
In spite of the questions.
Oh no, it's good. And the thing is the issues and concerns that we've got. You know, I know it sounded maybe a little egotistical, but I was binge watching last week major engineering disasters, and at one point one of the PhDs came up, and they had tried some new things with the building or something like that, and she says she said even the smartest genius cannot get it right when you're doing something new, and I said, geez, I feel like that person. No matter how smart I am, because you don't know what you don't know. And certainly we're dealing with core parts of behavior on the part of humanity: belonging, being loved, having a purpose in life, and having hope. And we're striving to plug a whole bunch of those holes. I'm not going to have them love me. I'm not a Trump, right? But um, but we can cover some of those other things in terms of belonging and hoping and and for some having a purpose because of their involvement. But it's human nature stuff, and boy, can you get that wrong, right? As those that have been through interesting times in their life can attest.
Yeah.
Right. So, on that note, thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you at the next meeting, and certainly at the spring meeting. All right. Take care.
On the 30th of March. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Robert,
Thank you.
for your hard work.
Thank you.